Are the Brits at it again? Our sources have confirmed that the Brits are indeed at it again. And what I'm talking about here is the latest tax guidance that has been given by the HMRC, who are the tax authority in the UK, in the last month. These two guidance updates in February were to do with DeFi related transactions and income, and it is important to keep an eye on these things because not many tax authorities have got to grips with crypto yet, so whoever takes the lead, maybe a lot of other countries will follow. When I first saw this new guidance, it did put a bit of a shiver down my spine because it is a bit of a departure on how we expect DeFi income to be taxed. And from what I can see, the people in the UK are not too happy about this new guidance either, even though it has not gone into their tax law just yet, but there is a good chance that it could get pushed through. Historically, the tax treatment of DeFi was thought to be very simple. You lend out your crypto, you don't actually sell any of it, you're just earning some interest on it by lending it out, and that income is then taxed at your income tax rates. Very simple, and that is how most countries actually treat it, like interest on a bond or even dividend income. So now let's go through exactly what the HMRC are actually saying could be the case going forward for DeFi. They have come up with two different categories of DeFi related income: revenue and capital. Any DeFi income that is categorized as revenue is exactly how we know it in the past. You're just going to pay your income tax rates on any income that you actually earn from the DeFi. Where the worrying part actually comes in is if your DeFi income is actually treated as a capital income. So in this case, if your DeFi income is actually treated as a capital income, what would actually happen is you would have to calculate a capital gains at the time when you enter into this DeFi arrangement. Already you can probably see how this could be a huge problem, because historically if you lend out your crypto or provide liquidity, you are not losing control of your assets. It's not going to be a taxable event and you don't have to calculate your capital gains at that point. But here the HMRC are saying in certain circumstances you will actually have to do that. And if that is the case, then it probably makes using DeFi not very viable for a lot of people. They caused even more confusion when they put together these 4 different factors to determine if the income that you made from DeFi is revenue or capital. So I went through these 4 factors and I was pretty much none the wiser after reading them. We'll go through them now. So the first one is whether the return to be received by the lender liquidity provider is known at the time of the arrangement. If the return to be received has been agreed, for example 5% per annum, this would indicate that it is a revenue receipt. If the return to be received is unknown and speculative, then this would be a capital receipt. So you would be thinking that most of the times that we use DeFi, we don't really know how much exactly we're going to be receiving in receipt of putting our crypto into, say, a liquidity pool or lending it out. You would imagine then that would lead us to be classifying them all as capital receipts. The second factor they have here then is if the return is realised through the disposal of a capital asset, this would indicate a capital receipt. If the return is paid by the borrower, the DeFi lending platform, to the lender, liquidity provider, this would indicate a revenue receipt. So when you use a DeFi platform, do you actually have to sell your assets to get everything back, or do you actually get paid by the borrower or the DeFi lending platform? The third factor then is whether the return is paid periodically throughout the period of the lending staking, or whether it is paid upon payment of the principal. A one-off payment is more likely to have the nature of capital, while a recurring payment is more likely to be of a revenue income. And then the last factor that they have thrown in there is whether the period of the lending is fixed or indefinite, short or long term. I don't really know if those 4 factors help us out that much. It still seems like it's pretty confusing and everybody will have to try and figure this out themselves, which will cause even more confusion. So just to highlight the problem of being categorized in that capital bucket, I put together a bit of an example here just to illustrate it. So let's say this person bought 2 ETH back in December 2020 when the price was around €500. So the cost of the ETH to him at that time was €1,000. And in May 2022, then the value of ETH had risen to €3,500. So now the value of his 2 ETH are €7,000. So he has an unrealized profit of €6,000. Then he was talking to some of his buddies and he heard about the benefits of DeFi, and he heard that he could get 10% return on his investment. So he decided to use the DeFi protocol and he put in his 2 ETH into it, and he was hoping to get back 0.2 ETH in return. If these transactions were classified as capital according to the factors laid down by the HMRC, then he would have to go and calculate a capital gain at that time that he actually enters into and uses the DeFi protocol. So he would have to pay tax on his €6,000 profit that he made so far. I think the tax rate in the UK is something like 20% on capital gains. So he'd go and pay €1,200 in capital gains tax at that time. And then a year later, the price of ETH is €3,800. And he receives his 0.2 ETH as a part of the DeFi yield farming. So that is worth €760, which he now must go and pay income tax on too. So as you can see, if you are going to get caught out by capital gains by just using DeFi, people are not going to use it, especially because one of the major use cases of using DeFi as well at the moment is to try and avoid tax. So if this does go into UK tax law, this could put a bit of a dampener on DeFi growth in the UK. So hopefully other tax authorities around the world do not start copying what the UK have done here, and hopefully this doesn't actually come into tax law in the UK. But if it does, it could be a pretty bad thing for DeFi. Hopefully common sense will prevail. I know in Ireland sometimes we do defer to UK tax law and tax guidance when we don't have any specific laws to go on in our own country. Hopefully that is less the case since Brexit, but we will definitely see sometime in the near future. But anyway, that is my update and video for today. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it useful. If you did, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and drop a like on the video as well.